this meeting room, side event room 2, Strongford Low, for a side event. We're all here gathered at COP26. It's a busy morning. The world leaders have departed. You may have heard the helicopters taking them away yesterday afternoon, and the work has already begun in earnest. Welcome to this side event, which is about the achievements of the Facilitative Working Group of the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform between 2020 and 2021. This side event helps parties and all of you Indigenous people, observers here at COP26, and the many of you who are joining us out in the world, wherever you are virtually, to understand what progress has been made in this side-by-side work between Indigenous peoples, parties of this UNFCCC convention, and other stakeholders in building engagement, building understanding, and ultimately moving forward together, deepening the understanding about how we can take care of this planet and take care of each other. So it's my pleasure, as is the tradition in the work with Indigenous peoples here at the UNFCCC, to welcome Tunga for an Indigenous invocation. And as Tunga is making his way to the podium, maybe I can just introduce him. Mr. Tunga belongs to the Rai Indigenous peoples of Nepal. He's an anthropologist by academic learning and has been working with Indigenous peoples at national and in the international arena for more than a decade. Currently, Mr. Tunga Rai is the National Coordinator of Nepal Federation and of Indigenous Nationalities, or NEFIN. Tunga, we're so pleased to have your invocation. I'd like to invite you to the podium now.
Thank you very much, Coco. Dear co-chairs, relatives, Seva, Trasidele, and Namaste. You know, we start every ceremony in our culture by making a fire and burning incense collected from the mountains, the pine trees, and aromatic plants. I was preparing for that, but I was also not sure about the immigration rules and security in the venue. So I apologize for this to our great spirit and to ancestors for not being able to do that. And sometimes we start our work by singing and sometimes by dancing, but that is always in a group as we are peoples, as we are collective. So it doesn't make sense for me to perform here any dance or any song by myself. So also, I apologize for this inconvenience and inappropriate beginning of the ceremony. But I would like to request all of you to come with me and bring you to the mountains where I come from, and come with me to the mountains and to the land where my grandparents told me that we always interact with the nature and all the sentient beings, including all ecological families in the world, where we consider every creature as the siblings of our human being. So we start our harvesting time and planting season with the dances, with the songs. We imitate each and every creature. We respect them. We offer our gratitude to every creature and every animals and plants, so that we get a good harvest, we get a good food, and also we pay our thankful and gratefulness to the nature. So I share this wisdom and I share this knowledge from our ancestors, from our great spirits and great parents. So I hope that this is the root where the knowledge of indigenous peoples coming from. I believe that the discussion and conversation of this side event and also the achievement of the local communities and indigenous peoples platform would be guided by these values which we inherit from our ancestors. So I here invite you everyone to reach out to the land of indigenous peoples in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, or anywhere in the world, in the mountains, in the lowland, and in the ocean, and interact with the nature, talk with the nature, read the nature, and respond to the gesture of the nature. So our conversation, your conversation will be guided by these values and principles. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tunga. We hope for a fruitful discussion today to showcase the many achievements of the Facilitative Working Group over the past 2 years. And for those of you who are new to the family, you know that the Facilitative Working Group was established in Katowice in 2018. It's like a committee, and the UNFCCC, we call it a constituted body. And that constituted body was established to breathe life into the local communities and Indigenous peoples platform. Many of you worked to help establish that platform in Paris in 2015, and this has been a long journey that had a couple of really important milestones, and of course, the journey unfolds ahead of us, and so many of you are helping to shape it, and we appreciate that. Through the exchange of experience and best practice, Indigenous peoples and local communities can help inform parties here under the UNFCCC process on how to reorient society towards nature to meet the commitments of the Paris Agreement. And that is the great work that we're involved in here together. And you see our members here. Well, actually, you see a picture of many of yourselves at this historic moment in Katowice when the body was established. So that is the Facilitative Working Group. I'm getting the slides out of order. I beg your pardon, Nina. Let's take a look at the functions of the local communities and Indigenous peoples platform. There are 3, and as you see here, they are knowledge, capacity for engagement, and I'm nearsighted, so climate change, policies, and actions. And under these 3 functions, there have been a number of activities that have taken place in the past 2 years. You're going to hear today some highlights of those activities. Now, if I could just take a step back, in negotiation rooms, some meters from here, just a couple of hallways away, negotiators are convening, and the LCIPP agenda item met yesterday in its first slot and was talking about some of these things that have been achieved. And so meeting here today, hearing from our wonderful panelists about what's been achieved, and also the work that might lie ahead is very timely. I'd like to now turn the time to the co-chair of the Facilitative Working Group, Mr. Thomas Cameron. Tom is going to moderate the next section of our program. Tom, you have the floor. Thank you, everyone. Wishing us a successful side event.
Thank you, Coco, for that overview, and thank you, Tunga, for those opening words to frame our discussion in a good way. So since the FWG was created with the mandate to operationalize the platform and facilitate the implementation of those 3 functions of knowledge, capacity for engagement, and climate change policy and action, significant and really important work has been completed. As co-chair, I want to thank everyone for all their efforts to deliver on the initial 2-year work plan. It was certainly more than just FWG members. We had a lot of contributions from contributors and a lot of support from all of you. And I just want to recognize those contributions, especially in the difficult context of the pandemic. So since the Paris Agreement, as you can see above in the slide, the LCIPP has made momentous progress towards implementing its functions. I think there's some missing pieces on the slide, if you could go through it. So the platform was established at COP21. At COP22, parties agreed to move forward with the platform under the incremental approach. COP23, we had our first momentous decision operationalizing the platform and deciding on those 3 functions. COP24 established the Facilitative Working Group, which I was just speaking about. COP25 adopted the first 2-year work plan that was put forward by the FWG on the basis of consensus. And here at COP26, we will consider the mandate of the FWG, as well as a draft second 3-year work plan, which again was developed on the basis of consensus between party representatives and Indigenous representatives, which is truly a model for the UNFCCC process. And just a couple words on progress for the initial 2-year work plan. As you can see on the slide above, 11 of the 12 activities have been completed so far, and the remaining one activity will be completed soon after this COP, with the exception of the regional gatherings, which we were unable to complete due to the pandemic and the fact that it was not appropriate to conduct those gatherings in the virtual setting. The graphic above also highlights the activities that have been completed and are nearing completion, with those being fully completed in dark green. And the work plan has enabled the LCIPP to deliver on the functions of knowledge, capacity for engagement, and climate policies, yielding a wealth of resources to further inform parties on best practices when engaging Indigenous peoples and local communities, as well as some of the unrealized potential of engaging Indigenous peoples in policies under the convention, such as NDCs, NAPs, and other related policies. So going forward, as I mentioned at COP26, we'll there's been a lot of progress so far, and we're hoping as FWG members and parties that the parties will welcome the next 3-year work plan as the next logical step for the implementation of the platform and facilitating its functions. And we look forward to those discussions with all of you as we go forward. So thanks for listening, and I'll now hand it over to my other co-chair, Hindu.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Tunga, for the invocations, Coco for the overview of the LCIPP, and my co-chair, Tom, for highlighting the key achievement of the Facilitative Working Group, and everyone for joining us today. It's really a great pleasure to share with you the work that we did. So in this first segment, we shall discuss the work under the LCIPP initial 2 years work plan and our work as Facilitative Working Group members. The LCIPP initial 2 years work plan has 3 functions: knowledge, capacity for engagement, and climate policies and action. We have 3 speakers who will each speak about one of the above mentioned functions and the successful implementation of activities or work related to these functions. So I would like to start firstly by Alejandro Mayoral Baenos, who will be delivering a video statement. I hope that the tech will work. So Mr. Alejandro was a member of the LCIPP web portal submitted that was established to give support to the Secretariat in its effort to develop the LCIPP dedicated web portal. He is an Indigenous activist and a scholar executive director and founder of the Indigenous Friends Associations based in Toronto, Canada, and chair founder of the youth group Mactayani EC in Mexico. Alejandro has a PhD in communication and culture from New York University, Rider University. He is also a member of several boards in Canada and Mexico, linking education initiative with Indigenous self-determination. So we will now listen from the recording video of Alejandro that will talk us about the LCIPP web portal, how it can serve as a tool to elevate the knowledge and the voice of Indigenous peoples. So the tech, I hope it will work for his video.
Glenn, Akinkin Guanican, Alejandro Mayoral Baños. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alejandro Mayoral Baños. I'm talking from the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples in what is called now Toronto in Canada. I'm talking as part of the subcommittee from the Facilitative Working Group of the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform that is working around the web portal. I think part of my journey has been to connect a lot of digital projects with indigeneity in the last 10 years. So part of the process of creating this website is how we can accommodate different local communities in a more accessible way, and how we can face a lot of the challenges that a lot of local members are facing around climate change. Um, as I'm going to be presenting, this tool wants to articulate different communities and different activists around an inclusive space for bringing together knowledge and experiences across different regions. This process has been through the 6 different regions of the LCIPP. And this portal has 4 main functions that are supporting indigenous peoples and local communities to combat climate change. The first one is to actually share the purpose and the actions that LCIPP is doing, and a little bit of the background of the different meetings that have happened in the last 2 years. And how different communities are articulating around climate change. Of course, you can see all the different functions of the LCIPP here about knowledge, capacity for engagement, and climate change policies and actions. A second function of these platforms is to provide a library of resources. This library of resources allows local community members, local organizations, even regional governments, national governments, to share different pieces of information that actually can inform better different communities about how to combat climate change. This has been a very interesting process because, of course, in order to submit a resource, there is a committee that is reviewing the materials. For the sake of time, I cannot provide details about the specifications of the committee, but there has been a lot of design in order to address all the different challenges that a lot of local communities and indigenous peoples are facing at the local level. In a third stream, we are also providing a space for events. The idea of this part is that different local organizations or regional organizations can share their events across different regions. And of course, some of them are online, some of them are in person. And the idea is that people can start articulating and they can know what are the events that are happening across indigenous peoples and climate change. Finally, as the last stream is the news, the idea is, of course, to highlight what are the advancements of different communities at the local and regional level. And the idea is that these news can be fed by different organizations, by different community members. And the idea is like this can highlight a lot of the progress in combating climate change. It's important to mention that this portal is a work in progress. Right now, the portal is just in English, but the portal will be available in the 6 UN languages. And the idea is, of course, in the future to expand even more and to even provide translation in different indigenous languages. But the first goal is just to have the UN official languages. And allow people to engage in different languages. Another feature that is important to mention about this tool is that this tool has been designed to be mobile friendly, because we acknowledge that a lot of our colleagues and members of local communities, they don't have access to a laptop or to a computer. So the idea is anyone, even in a mobile phone, can have access, can get the resources, and even upload documents to the platform. So the idea is that this can be accessible as possible for the majority of the communities. As I mentioned before, this has been a collaborative process between the different regions. And we have been providing feedback and trying to provide a little bit of context of what are the needs of different communities. We see that this platform has a lot of potential to actually bring communities together in order to share a lot of traditional knowledge and a lot of actions that can be taken at the local level in order to combat climate change. I think we are all aware that there are a lot of actions happening at the ground level, and it's important to start highlighting what is effective, what is not effective, and start articulating different movements across regions, across the world, so they can start expanding and create a better change. I think the added value for LCIPP is that this platform allows everyone, every single person, even that if they don't know what is LCIPP, to get informed and to take immediate action towards combating climate change. I think that the strategy of trying to combine and trying to adding efforts in a digital platform has a lot of potential in the long term, especially after the pandemic and after the consequences that have happened in the last 2 years around climate change. So we believe, as the subcommittee of the Facilitative Working Group, that these efforts can create a lot of articulation. This is just on a starting point. As I mentioned, it's a work in progress, and there are going to be a lot of different, advancements in the next upcoming months. Thank you for listening to this brief overview of the platform. And if you have any suggestions, comments, don't doubt to write me an email. You can email me to alejandro@indigenousfriends.org, or you can contact directly the LCIPP to provide any feedback. Thank you so much, Pashka Katsini, miigwech, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandro, for your video showing the case of the unique features of the LCIPP web portal. We hope to see the web portal utilized to its full function and to be a potential that everyone can have the showing case of the knowledge, information, even all the indigenous peoples and local communities context on the climate change. And if you have any questions, please write it down patiently. We have 2 more speakers, and we can get a little time of discussions after them. So our next speaker will be Dr. Victoria. Sorry for that. Our next speaker will be Dr. Victoria Coutuch Buschmann, who will be elaborating for us what has been done and the capacity for engagement, the 2 functions of the LCIPP initial 2 years work plan. Dr. Victoria is Inukiak knowledge holders, wildlife and conservation biologist, and delegate of the Inuit Circumpolar Council from Alaska. She has lived and worked across the Arctic in an effort to promote how indigenous peoples fundamentally share Arctic biodiversity conservation, from research to management to actualization, all the dreams of new protected areas. Dr. Victoria, we are very happy to have you. You are welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming me here today. Today, I'm here to share my experiences participating in 2 of 4 webinar series that was supported and facilitated by the FWG on the engagement of Indigenous knowledge. So these 4 webinars were structured to help share and build capacity for the engagement of Indigenous knowledge within the UNFCCC and the LCIPP. So these 4 groups looked at questions that these 4 webinars looked at a few things, including what is Indigenous knowledge and how do we engage with Indigenous knowledge in ethical and equitable ways. So this is important for building capacity because within the UNFCCC, of course, decision makers and policymakers also need to have an understanding for what Indigenous knowledge is so that we can start from a place of understanding around expectations of what Indigenous knowledge is and what it can contribute to discussions around climate change and what it is not and what it cannot contribute. So this was a very important series that brought together Indigenous knowledge holders from all 7 of the regions. Only a few were represented at each webinar, but we were also able to discuss the barriers and challenges and opportunities of engagement with Indigenous knowledge within our respective regions and share these stories and experiences amongst each other, but of course in a way that was able to hopefully help build capacity for those in the United Nations to understand what it is that Indigenous knowledge can contribute to the adaptation and remediation around climate change. So this is of course important because it allows us to work better and more efficiently with Indigenous communities. There were not Indigenous communities necessarily involved in these particular discussions, but because we had chosen representatives from these regions, we were able to, of course, express the voices of our communities. But of course, further work with communities, specifically individual communities, around how Indigenous knowledge should be engaged is also, of course, important. So this was a very important step in the process. Additionally, I would like to say that there is a report, I believe, that is available, and the webinars are available online, so you can still access these to see what all of the folks who were involved in these webinars were able to contribute. Koinakpak, thanks very much. I'm available for questions later or to the Inuit Circumpolar Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victoria, for sharing your experience as part of the activity for webinars. This is really a very important activities that happen in this difficult time of COVID. So as you also say that the LCIPP aims at building capacity for Indigenous peoples and local communities, but as well for the parties and other stakeholders. So this is really a good to give example of how we are engaging in this process. So our next speakers, and I can say finally in this first session, because before I hand it over to my friend and brother Yo, it is Miss Maria Angelica Rondon. So she will share with us about the third and last function of the LCIPP initial 2 years work plan and climate policies in action. Maria is going to talk about undertaking more ambitious climate policies through collaboration with Indigenous peoples and local communities in the LCIPP. So she has been part of the coordinating team for the prior consultation of the regulation of the framework law on climate change in Peru, and technically accompanied the creation of the Indigenous peoples platform to confront the climate change back home. So Dr. Maria, we're really very happy to have you here. You have the floor.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm grateful to be here. Let me share with you our work and how we include the priorities of Indigenous people into our national agenda on climate change. First of all, since 2014, during the COP held in Lima, Peruvian government demonstrates its commitment to establish a permanent intercultural dialogue with Indigenous people. It's there that we organized Indigenous Pavilion. This space led us to establish a long-term relationship with indigenous people. It was a pivotal moment for us. We strengthened the capacity of indigenous people. For that reason, in 2019, we have an important process, a prior of consultation of the regulation of the climate change law. Well, this consultation is according to the rights legal binding established in the Convention 169. We worked with the 7th National Organization of Indigenous People that represent 55 local communities, and also the process includes the participation of more than 1,000 indigenous people, with the participatory of more than 50% of humans. As a result of this process, we incorporate the priorities of indigenous people on the regulations of the climate change law. That means that we include intercultural approach into the integral management of climate change. And that's reflect and how we incorporate the traditional knowledge and indigenous practice in the adaptation and climate actions. Focus on natural-based solution, on protect our forests, and how to management sustainable hydro resource. Also, that is also our platform if we create an indigenous people platform to tackle climate change in 2020. That was part of the accord in the priority consultation with the 7th National Organization of Indigenous People. This is a remarkable governance space for us, which allow us to coordinate with indigenous people, Amazon and Andean local community. Also, it is a space to discuss their action and how this action could include in the legal provisions. Also, it's a space to review and make a comment for legal national projects. We also have adopted our national adaptation plan. This platform was a space that allowed us to share and to receive and to review, again review with the indigenous people, and we incorporate their action, their indigenous practice into the national adaptation plan. And also, as a result of this process, we recognize the role of indigenous people to protect our forest and our environment. And what means that? That we establish that the design of salvaguard must be formulated with the participation of the indigenous people in order to protect their rights and their territory. As Peruvian government, we firmly believe that in order to create ambitious climate policies, we must improve inclusive governments. And also we must be guided by this kind of a space that let us the opportunity to exchange knowledge, to our best practice, and to reduce the gap of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria, for sharing how you use the process to build the regulation and also to engage indigenous peoples and local communities in order to give them the way to participate in the national adaptation or NDCs at the national level, but in the legal way. This is really very important examples, and thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we thank all our 3 speakers here who give us a wonderful insight of the work of the Facilitative Working Group. And we have a very short time, but I really would like to hear from you. There is mic 1-3, there is mic 2-4 in that side. If you wanted to contribute or ask questions to the Secretariat or to our speakers, so please be there, and then we can take all your concern, and Secretariat will help us also to note what you wanted to do. So we have 5 minutes, so you can come over the mic, and I give you the floor. So I already have mic 2, please.
Hello, I'm Lobsang, a Tibetan born in Tibet, and currently I am an environment researcher of International Tibet Network in India. Tibet is on the front line of the global climate crisis, and it is warming more than 2 to 4 times faster than the global average. Tibet's glaciers and permafrost are melting and causing danger not only to the Tibetans, but more than 1.4 billion Asian populations in India, China, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan, and Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand. And so my question is, in the work of LCIPP and UNFCCC, how has the Tibetans involved in the, how has the local Tibetans involved in the work of LCIPP, and who are the Tibetans engaged or participated in the work of LCIPP, and what are their views on that? Because Tibetans, like the indigenous communities, they have a rich traditional knowledge in terms of protecting the Tibet's environment. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. If there is any other question, we take them and then we respond quickly. Mic 3, please.
Hello, I'm Himangana Gupta from Indian delegation. My question is that, are there any plans to link the LCIPP to other similar knowledge platforms that either address climate change or issues equally relevant to IPLCs, such as biodiversity conservation? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Mic 1.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Elisa Morgera. I'm an academic directing the One Ocean Hub, a global research collaboration on integrated and inclusive ocean governance. I was just wondering, with the ocean hopefully becoming much more embedded in the climate process, whether there is a sense that the platform already addresses ocean issues as well as the necessary safeguards to integrate indigenous and local knowledge in the process, or whether this is an area where more work will need to be done, and in what ways maybe the research community can support the platform to that end. Thank you.
Thank you. So I get just 2 last, and then we move to the next sessions. So mic 2 and mic 3, and then we move to the next session.
Good afternoon. Emilio Godoy, journalist from Mexico, Interpress News Agency. I've got a couple of questions for you. What would you define the main challenges for the Facilitator working group in the next 3 years? And how would you harmonize your work with that of similar bodies like the Indigenous and Local Knowledge at the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is stopped now by the pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our last speaker, mic 3.
Dee Woods from Land Workers Alliance in the UK, and also CSM focal point for Western Europe. Are farming communities, peasant communities, recognized as local communities and indigenous peoples who have particular knowledge around agroecology and in, participating in part of this?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. So I would like quickly to give the floor to my speakers and all the secretariat to their first reaction to your questions, but also some of your questions that you highlight are going to be discussed on the second part with my colleague Yo here, because you asked about our next work. So I think we will have the time to have it. So may I give you a quick reaction? And don't forget also, we note all what you are saying, we do not forget it. So I start by Victoria and Maria, and I go to the Secretariat.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of some of these facilitative working group activities. I do hope that we are able to move forward on climate change issues in ways that are ethical and equitable, and that we are mindful of those things as a facilitative working group and continue to do that good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victoria. Maria?
Maria, see, we also put the possibility to interlink the knowledge or the traditional knowledge and the practice that it could be results from the national level for every country, and to reflect to this platform portal, no, in order to exchange knowledge and best practice.
Thank you, Maria. Coco, you want to react, please?
Just to add, thank you. It's just wonderful to listen to you all. There was a question about linkages and synergies, and as you're about to hear from the other panelists, the Facilitative Working Group is working very hard to collaborate with other constituted bodies. And you particularly mentioned the topic of biodiversity, forests, grasslands. And by lucky coincidence, this evening, starting at 7:15 or 19:15, there's a focal point forum of one of the adaptation knowledge work programs. It's the Nairobi work program. And I think, Pilar, you're on the program. So that's a chance for all of you as contributors, experts, to come and talk about what you know about forests and grasslands biodiversity and have that rich exchange with parties, as well as the Facilitative Working Group. So just to emphasize, you're all welcome. As a secretary, we'll do anything or everything that we can to help you get engaged and bring your really important expertise and knowledge to the table. Thanks.
Thank you, Coco. Thank you really for your questions and comments. Yes, we didn't respond to all of them, but of course, Secretariat took note of all that. And if you wanted to discuss further with the members of the Facilitative Working Group or as the co-chairs here, or also our speakers, so it will be possible to do that immediately after. If you feel that you wanted to dive deep on it. Because of course we know all we have problem of time, and I hate that. So I really thank you all, and thanks to the speakers. I now would like to pass it to my brother here, Yo, who will take us to the second segment. Yo.
Thank you very much, Hindu, and respectful greetings to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today and participating in this discussion of the achievements of the Facilitative Working Group over its initial term. Just maybe briefly before going into this next section, I did try to capture all the questions that were asked in this first part, and if we have time at the end of this second part, we'll try to address as many of them as we can. But of course, as Hindu said, we're happy to address them right after this event as well. I will stick around and answer as much as possible. But so for this second part of the discussion, we will talk about how the FWG, as a constituted body under the UNFCCC, has interacted with other constituted bodies under the convention. And in this particular segment, just to remind everyone that under the mandate of the FWG, as provided to it by the Conference of Parties, the FWG is authorized to collaborate with other bodies, including constituted bodies under the convention, as appropriate, in order to enhance the coherence between the actions of the platform on the one hand and the actions of the other constituted bodies under the convention. And so for this second part of our discussion today, we will, with some members of some constituted bodies, discuss some of the major achievements that have resulted from the engagement of the Facilitative Working Group with those constituted bodies, what are some of the challenges that were encountered during the initial term of the Facilitative Working Group, as well as discuss possible ways to continue that coordination and synergy and collaboration between our different constituted bodies, including in the upcoming 3-year term of the FWG. So for that particular purpose, we are very happy that we have with us here today on this side of the panel, representatives of several constituted bodies with which the FWG has engaged over the last couple of years. We have a representative from the Adaptation Committee, as well as a representation from the consultative group of experts. We did also invite a representative of the Executive Committee of the WIM, of the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage, but he received a COVID-related notification right before our event and had to step away. He might be back later on, and if he is back, we will very happily invite him to intervene as well. So the speakers here with us today will share insights on how they have engaged with the platform, including what they think were highlights or major achievements of this engagement, and how they think that engagement with the platform, including its FWG, has enhanced their work under their own constituted bodies. And just like the first section, after their interventions, we will open the floor for a discussion with the audience, and hopefully we'll be able to address as many questions as we can before our time expires. So we'll start off by listening to Ms. Pilar Bueno, who is a member of the Adaptation Committee, as well as a former co-chair of that body from 2018 to 2019. And she will discuss her insights on engagement between the Adaptation Committee and the platform. Pilar Bueno is a senior researcher at the National Council of Scientific and Technical Research in Argentina. She is the former Secretary of Climate Change for Argentina. She was an adaptation negotiator on behalf of Argentina from 2013 to 2020, and is a lead negotiator, and was a lead negotiator of the G77 in China on adaptation between 2016 and 2018. She is also a professor at the National University of Rosario, and she leads research areas on climate change and environmental policies, including the Project Argentina 1.5 degrees Celsius. She is the academic coordinator of the Diploma in Political Management of Climate Change in Latin America and the Caribbean of the National University of Rosario. Pilar, please.
Thank you very much, Jo, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to intervene today on behalf of the Adaptation Committee. Thanks to the LCIPP and the FWG for the continuous support that we will be receiving from, and your active participation in the AC meetings and our events. We also appreciate the opportunity to be part of your meetings during this year and last year, and all these provide us a good opportunity for exchange, as I will mention in this intervention, for current and future work plan of the LCIPP as well as of the AC. So parties acknowledges that adaptation action should be based on and guided by the best available science and traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local knowledge systems in Article 7 of the Paris Agreement. And the LCIPP brings together indigenous people and local communities to work side by side with parties to help guide societies to reorient how we interact with nature and address climate change. So this provides us all an opportunity, but also a responsibility to act for climate adaptation. So I would like to, in this spirit of highlighting the fruitful collaboration that we have had, start by mentioning the joint event that we have an opportunity to have together in Madrid in 2019. In this event, we have very interesting and thorough conversations on integrating the knowledge of indigenous peoples and local knowledge systems into adaptation action. Let me say that it was really a process of understanding each other work and starting to set an agenda together that is, of course, work in progress. and I'm happy that is the case. We had the opportunity to identify a lot of possibilities for continuous collaboration with the LCIPP and to strengthen the engagement of indigenous people and local communities in climate adaptation policies and actions. So first, from our side here is to identify in the 3-year work plan of the LCIPP this opportunity for the studying more together, assessing together the contribution of indigenous people and local communities to the global goal on adaptation. You know, this is a crucial topic, not only in this COP, but also from here to the first GST. So we really consider this is the moment for starting this engagement on this particular topic. We also, considering our own work plan, the flexible work plan 2022-2024 that we addressed in our last meeting, AC20, you may see a lot of opportunities for continue this collaboration, including new annual dialogues with adaptation-related constituent bodies to discuss ways of further strengthening coherence and collaboration in addressing adaptation action. Other opportunity that we see in our work plan currently in 2024, the opportunity to work with the Facilitative Working Group on gender-responsive adaptation actions. We identify this is an area where we have a lot of possibilities to strengthen this collaboration that we already started. You may also, during our meetings, AC meetings and also LCIPP meetings, I already mentioned in the past the opportunity to continue exploring the outcome works, the adaptation communication. This is an ongoing work of the adaptation committee that we are going to deliver next year. This is coming from Katowice. Also strengthen our collaboration in terms of NAPs, National Adaptation Plans. And I would like to just to finalize my intervention by giving a very good signal from the AC in terms of the possibilities that we see, all what we had in the past, but also in the future. So we already had a collaboration ongoing, but we also have opportunities in the future to continue strengthening this collaboration in different areas, as the ones that I already identified, and any others that come from this session. So let me finish my intervention by supporting the comment made by Coco in terms of the opportunities with respect to the Nairobi Work Program, focal points, the meeting today, and this linkage with biodiversity, but also with other groups of the Nairobi Work Program, where I think we have an opportunity to have this and to build more bridges between the AC, the LCIPP, and the Nairobi Work Program. So with that, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to intervene today. I'm very happy to continue the collaboration. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pilar, for that very informative rundown of the synergies between the FWG and the Adaptation Committee. It really helps, among other things, to have specific language on indigenous peoples in the Paris Agreement, especially one of the articles, and that kind of as a touch point for this really important work. So thank you. Just moving along and conscious of time, I'm very happy to now turn over the floor to Michael Vartanian, who is a representative from the Consultative Group of Experts, otherwise known as the CGE. Michael, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and it is my pleasure to be here today. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Consultative Group of Experts, or the CGE. The CGE is an expert group under the convention, which also serves the Paris Agreement. And our primary mandate is to provide technical assistance and advice to developing country parties on the preparation of climate change reports, such as the national communications, the biennial update reports, and under the upcoming reporting regime defined in the Paris Agreement, also the biennial transparency reports. So we help developing countries organize and do this reporting in a timely and sustainable manner. Under the LCIPP work plan, the CG was kindly invited to collaborate on scoping documents and explore the opportunities to engage indigenous peoples and local communities in national reporting frameworks and the enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. Local communities can become invaluable agents and also beneficiaries of the climate change reporting process. They enable innovation and improvement in the quality of reporting, for example, by facilitating the so-called bottom-up collection of activity data. Engaging with and understanding of climate change reporting is also a great way to understanding of what is required and what is meaningful to do locally to mitigate climate change and to adapt to its consequences. Our group is looking forward to carrying out this work in collaboration with the Facilitative Working Group to help parties further engage with indigenous and local expertise and to help reorient the ways the societies interact with nature. Through this collaboration, we are looking forward to enhancing the coherence and synergy under the Convention. With that, I thank you for your attention and for the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that informative presentation. Also noting, among other things, the link to the presentation we had in the first segment from the delegate of Peru, of the work that Peru is doing at the national level for involvement of indigenous peoples in climate policies and actions, and how maybe your constituted body can have a supportive role in that as well. So thank you, Michael. Like I said, we did invite a representative of the UNFCCC to participate with us here today. He had to be called away because of a COVID-related notification, and I don't see him in the room. But I did have the advantage of some advanced notes that he was prepared for him. And just to very briefly inform the group here today, the gathering here today, about the work that the UNFCCC has done in connection with the platform and its FWG. I think, as you may be aware, the UNFCCC has recognized the importance of engaging the expertise of indigenous peoples under the work of the WIM, especially in relation to matters of loss and damage. And to that end, it has created a non-economic losses expert group, or a NELS group, that has engaged an indigenous expert to provide technical expertise on indigenous matters to the group. And at the moment, Andrea Carmen, who is a member of the Facilitative Working Group, serves as a member of this NELS expert group to provide as an indigenous expert. And under the draft second 3-year work plan for the platform, there is a reference, an invitation to the UNFCCC to continue collaborating with the platform and its FWG on matters relating to loss and damage. And so hopefully that will come about. With that, I thank very much the presenters for this second part of the event today. And we do have a few minutes remaining. And we'd like to open up the floor once again to a discussion with the audience. There are mics 1, 3, 2, 4. And please, if you do have a question, please come up to the nearest mic to you, and we will go ahead. I see Pasang at mic 1.
It's not a question, just want the, hi, I'm Pasang Dulma Selpa, the Facility Working Groups. I just would like to I just would like to address some of the queries that has not been able to, that had not been covered due to the, maybe it's because of the time. Yeah, and thank you very much for the collaboration from AC and C also. We look for the collaboration, continued collaboration in the future. Just would like to highlight the three parts that, how this biodiversity and traditional knowledge and how it can be linked with the facilitative working group. The mandate of the facilitative working group is knowledge, capacity building, climate change policy and action. So knowledge is all related with indigenous knowledge, our cultural practices, our values, our expertise, our day-to-day work and belief system that all incorporated with the knowledge system that related with the climate change resilience, how it contributed for the adaptation and mitigation. So Facilitative Working Group believes that with that knowledge, we build the capacity among ourselves and among the state parties and among the bilateral agencies, multilateral agencies, different bodies within the UNFCCC and outside. And that's how we collaboration can build up for the climate change policy, the relevant policy that would recognize indigenous people knowledge, cultural practices, our customary governance system, our values, so that we can implement into action on the ground. So that's why either it's a biodiversity issues, either it's a forestry issues, either it's a natural resource governance, all are related. All are related, and that is under the function of the knowledge, and to be build the capacity on this one so that we'll have a relevant policy and action on the ground, so that we'll have a long-term resilience to deal with the climate change with the knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities. I hope I address some of your queries, but I'm here happy to address if you have any queries in the further. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yo.
Thank you very much, Pasang. I see number 3 and number 4, so please, number 3, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Holly Tomlinson from Land Workers Alliance, Policy Officer for Wales. My question is related to carbon markets. A lot of indigenous groups have raised lots of concerns about the impact of carbon markets, and in many cases destroying the places where they live, and there's been a lot of violence towards them. And have these concerns factored into your processes and into the communications across different working groups in the UNFCCC, and if so, how?
Thank you very much for that question. And number 4, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kimaren Oleriamit. I come from Kenya. First, I would want to reaffirm that this is one of the most critical agendas with respect to the local communities and indigenous people platform. The extent to which the aspirations of the platform permeates through all the elements of the UNFCCC. The challenge we have witnessed as indigenous people is an isolation, a siloing of indigenous into some corner, where rights are in the preamble, but they don't inform actions, programs, and planning. And so my question is really, given the centrality of this question, the extent to which the rights, the aspiration, the knowledge that inform adaptation and mitigation are reflected in every agenda of the UNFCCC or program of work, what sort of decision are we anticipating here around this issue? First, because there is no separation in the indigenous people worldview between adaptation and mitigation. This is an integrated space for nature and people and climate. And so I would just want to say that I desire to hear what sort of decision beyond the reporting and aspiration by the different WIMs and ACs do we expect from here in Glasgow on this agenda? It's at the heart of giving meaning to the platform and the aspiration it embodies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And one more, I will take one more question because we are running out of time, or 2 more questions, and that'll be it. And so I'll start with number 3 and then conclude with number 1. Thank you. Go ahead, number 3, please.
Thank you very much for your relevant presentations. I'm Himangana Gupta from India. And it's more of a comment, actually reinforces what others have said. What I've noticed from my assessments that UN meetings have actually highlighted the role of IPLCs quite a lot, especially their vulnerability, but we have not so much been able to strengthen their role in filling the local data gaps, as has been highlighted, and also how they could be directly involved into climate interventions at the national level. So again, my question is similar to the previous question, that this time, how do we actually plan to spearhead the the action at the local level? Like, for example, India is trying to make local biodiversity registers because it feels that biodiversity conservation is central to climate change adaptation. So these kinds of actions need to be taken instead of just highlighting the role of IPLCs. We need to really get on the ground now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, number one, please.
Thank you for opening the floor to questions. My question is regarding the word indigenous people. So I'm Tenzin Chuki, I'm senior researcher at Tibet Watch. I saw that there was another Tibetan researcher who raised a question about involvement of Tibetans on the ground inside Tibet. One of the really difficult challenges is that because Tibet is colonized by China, it's really difficult for independent experts and working groups to speak to Tibetans on the ground. And because now we know, all of us know, that indigenous people are really raising their voice against their involvement, to involve them in the policy level, I want to ask, because UNFCCC is the authoritative international platform, what is the meaning of indigenous people? The voices of the indigenous people are growing. What are the criteria of the meaning that are being set at the international level? Because they are the people who are the knowledge holders, and then there's the indigenous knowledge, which is very vast. So for Tibetans who are not, recognized as Tibetans, as citizens, what place do Tibetans have? So I would like to reassert the questions that the other Tibetan researcher raised, and then also the question about what is indigenous people in the end, because it's a very broad and important meaning. And what it keeps changing. So how do you cope with that change? And what sort of criteria do you set? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to you and all the audience participants for your really thoughtful and incisive and some tough questions that you've asked here today. I will maybe turn to Michael if he has any response to any of the questions that came up, if you have, or any input you would have. I do have some maybe, but just very briefly so that we can, because we're out of time.
Yes, so I don't have a lot of input because, in fact, our work with the Facilitative Working Group is just starting, and as someone just noted, is there anything except for declarations of further collaboration? Well, at this point, this is what we have achieved. We have some good ideas to work on, and watch this space for further news.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I'm being urged very, very strongly that we will have to conclude now. The broadcast is concluding. Like I said, and like Hindu said, the Secretariat has collected your questions, and we will try to reflect them in an appropriate manner. And we're also available right after this event to talk to in person to address some of the questions that have been raised. Our time is up, and I guess on behalf of the panelists and the Secretariat and our chairs, our co-chairs, Tom and Hindu, thank you all very much for coming here and participating in this event to chronicle and celebrate the achievements of the FWG over its initial 2-year period. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.